Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning to our lecturer, Madam Hilyati binti Alilah, and also to my fellow friends. And don't forget to say Alhamdulillah, because we're still living today, and hopefully we all in a good condition. Today I would like to present about selecting in human resource. Alright, so my name is MOHAMED Aiedil Putera bin Sulaiman. ID matrix I191033659, and our semester 3. This is a content. Here what you will find in this slide. Okay, apa yang korang nampak dekat dalam slide ni adalah kenaan dengan introduction, selecting, importance of selecting, advantage of selection, process of selection, selection technique by ownership pattern and company size, selection, recruitment and job analysis relationship, literature review, case study, conclusion, and also reference. Okay, before we go deep, we must know what is selection. Okay, according to Del Yoder, selection is the process of choosing from among candidates from within the organization or from the outside the most suitable person for the current position or for the future position. Okay, selection has been regarded as the most important function of HR department. It ensures the organization that it has a right number, a right kind of people at the right place and at the right time. Di mana pemilihan telah dianggap sebagai fungsi terpenting dalam jabatan sumber manusia. Ini memastikan organisasi mempunyai bilangan yang tepat, jenis orang yang tepat di tempat yang tepat pada masa yang tepat. Selection is the process of selecting a qualified person who can successfully do a job and deliver valuable contribution to the organization. In this process, the most suitable candidate is picked after the elimination of the candidates who are not suitable for the vacant job. A selection system should be depend on job analysis. This ensures that the selection criteria are job-related and will provide meaningful organizational value. The requirement for a selection, such as KSO, which is K for knowledge, S for skill, A for abilities, and O for other characteristics. Alright, the next slide is importance of selection. Alright, selection is an important process because hiring good resources can help increase the overall performance of the organization. In contrast, if there is a bad hire with a bad selection process, then the work will be affected and the cost incurred for replacing the bad resource will be high. Pemilihan adalah merupakan salah satu proses penting kerana pengambilan sumber yang baik dapat membantu meningkatkan prestasi organisasi secara keseluruhan. Sebaliknya, jika ada pengambilan pekerja yang tidak baik dengan orang kata apa? Dengan proses pemilihan yang tidak baik, maka pekerjaan tersebut akan terjejas dan kos yang dikeluarkan untuk menggantikan sumber yang buruk itu akan menjadi lebih tinggi. Alright, so there has several importance of selection, such as one is proper selection and placement of employees lead to growth and development of the company. The company can similarly only be as good as the capabilities of its employees. Second, the hiring of talented and skilled employees result in the swift achievement of company goals. Third, industrial accident will drastically reduce in numbers when the right technical staff is employed for the right jobs. And four, when people get job they are good at, it creates a sense of satisfaction with them, and thus their work efficiency and quality improve. And five, people who are satisfied with their job often tend to have high moral and motivation to perform better. So the organization has to follow a proper selection process of procedure, as a huge amount of money is spent for hiring a right candidate for a position. If a selection is wrong, then the cost incurred in induction and training the wrong candidate will be a huge loss to the employer in terms of money, effort, and also time. Hence, Selection is very important and the process should be perfect for the betterment of the organisation. Di mana maksudnya di sini adalah organisasi harus mengikuti proses atau prosedur pemilihan yang tepat kerana sejumlah besar wang dibelanjakan untuk pengambilan calon yang tepat untuk sesuatu jawatan. Okey, baik. Sekiranya pemilihan itu salah, jadi akan menjadi orang kata salah satu kerugian yang besarlah kepada majikan dari segi wang, usaha dan juga masa. Jadi disebabkan itu, pemilihan adalah sangat-sangat mustahak dan prosesnya harus sempurna untuk kemajuan organisasi. Okay, the next slide is advantage of selection. Okay, a good selection process offer the following advantage. First is it is cost effective and reduce a lot of time and effort. Second, it helps avoid any biasing while recruiting the right candidate. Third, it helps eliminate the candidates who are lacking in knowledge, ability, and proficiency. 4. It provides a guideline to evaluate the candidate further through strict verification and reference checking. 5. It helps in comparing the different candidates in terms of their capabilities, knowledge, skill, experience, work attitude, and others. So a good selection process helps in selecting the best candidate for the requirement of a vacant position in an organization. Okay, the next slide is selection of process. Okay, sebelum kita pergi lebih jauh ataupun lebih dalam sebelum penerangan pasal process of selection, jadi di sini ada beberapa process of selection lah. Okay, yang pertama adalah preliminary interview, kedua reserving application, screening application, selection test, selection interview, check-in reference, selection decision, medical examination, and final selection and appointment letter. So, the first step is preliminary interview, di mana pemeriksaan awal perlu dilakukan, which is in this step and all the undesirable applicants are weeded out. Bermaksud semua pemohon yang tidak diingini akan kita hapuskan. Ini merupakan langkah yang sangat penting kerana perlu membuang semua pemohon yang tidak berkelayakan, tidak diinginkan, dan juga membantu pengurus HR kemudian secara tidak langsung dapat menumpukan perhatian kepada pemohon yang lain tanpa perlu membuang masa lah. So the candidates are generally told about the job specification and the skill required for it. This process screens the most obvious misfit. Okay, so this is a very general and basic interview conducted as to eliminate the candidates who are completely unfit to work in the organization. This leaves the organization with a pool of potentially fit employees to fill their vacancy. Okay, step 2 is reserving applications. So this is a process of reserving and reviewing job application forms, resumes, and various other forms of applicant material based on objective criteria. Review the job description first to note minimum qualification to review application objectively, di mana ia merupakan salah satu proses menerima dan menyemak borang-borang permohonan pekerjaan, resume dan pelbagai bentuk bahan pemohon lain berdasarkan kriteria objektif. Semak semua deskripsi pekerjaan terlebih dahulu untuk mengetahui kelayakan minimum untuk menyemak permohonan secara objektif. Okay, so potentially employees apply for a job by sending application to the organization. The application gives the interviewers information about the candidate like biodata, work experience, hobbies, and interests. When reviewing application, consider this following. First is personal details of the applicant. Second, educational qualification. Third is working experience. 4, specific skills. 5, interest of recreational activities. Step 3, screening application. So once the application are received, they are screened by a special screening committee who choose candidates from the application to call for an interview. Applicants may be selected on special criteria like qualification, work experience, and other. If there is nothing else available and the candidate obviously unqualified for the position, the process ends there. So saving both the candidate and the organization the time and expense of going further in the selection process. Pemohon boleh dipilih berdasarkan kriteria khas seperti contohnya kelayakan, pengalaman kerja dan lain-lain lah. So sekiranya tidak ada, calon itu jelaslah tidak layak untuk jawatan tersebut, di mana serta prosesnya akan berakhir di situ saja. So ianya dapat menjimatkan masa dan pembelanjaan lah untuk calon dan juga organisasi untuk memasuki proses pemilihan yang seterusnya. Step yang keempat adalah selection test. Right, employment tests are devised to check the overall knowledge of candidates for the respective job. These tests are very specific as they enable the management to bring out the right type of people for this job. Before an organization decides a suitable job for any individual, they have to gauge their talents and skill. This is done through various employment tests like intelligence tests, aptitude tests, proficiency tests, personality tests and others. So di mana sebelum organisasi itu memutuskan pekerjaan yang sesuai untuk mana-mana individu, mereka harus mengukur bakat dan kemahiran mereka. Ini dilakukan melalui pelbagai ujian pekerjaan, seperti contohnya ujian kecerdasan, ujian kebolehan, ujian kecakapan, ujian kepribadian dan lain-lain lagi. Okay, so the following tests are tests given to candidate in most cases. For example, the intelligence test. Okay, we must know what is intelligence test. So intelligence test first is test the mental ability of candidates. Alright, this test measure the learning ability of candidates in understanding question and their power to take quick decision on crucial point. People, however, who are able to quickly answer to this question are found to be skillful and can be offered training to improve skills for the job organization. Next is aptitude test. They test an individual capacity to learn a particular skill. There are mainly two types of aptitude tests. First is cognitive tests, which measure intellectual, and second is mental aptitude. So the second one is called motor test, which check the hand-eye coordination of employee. Alright, next is a proficiency test. Alright, these tests are also called performance or occupational tests. They determine the skills and knowledge acquired by an individual through experience and on-the-job training. And lastly is a personality test. This test judge the psychological makeup of any person. This test check a person's motivational level, emotion, integrity, sympathy, sensitivity and others. This trait is an individual provide the manager with an overall picture of his personality. The next step, or we call step 5, is selection interview. So the next steps in the selection process is the employee interview. Employment interview are done to identify a candidate's skill and set and ability to work in organisation detail. Di mana tujuan interview adalah untuk mengetahui kesesuaian calon dan memberinya idea mengenai profil kerja dan apa yang diharapkan daripada pekerja itu sendiri. So temu ramah pekerjaan sangat penting untuk pemilihan orang yang tepat untuk pekerjaan yang tepat. Right. So step 5, which is a type of selection test that involves a conversation between the job applicant and representative of the employer. Interview are the one of the most popularity used device for employee selection. So before conducting a selection review, the interviewer should be very clear about what they expect to achieve from the interviewer. So the following is a recommended type of pattern interview. There has a 5 element of pattern interview include: first, the opening and overview. Put the applicant at ease with introduction and general organizational and job related information. Give fact about the policies, procedure, culture of the company so that he feels good about it. Second is experience question. This question confirms a candidate's credential and achievements. Third, self-evaluation question. This question determines information on what the candidate thinks, feels of hypothesis about particular topic. And 4, behavior-based question, which focus on relating past job performance to probable future on-job behavior. And 5th, finally, the closing dialogue, which allow the applicants to interview you. Okay, there's a types of interview which is the organization or company can use macam dia boleh gunakan antara salah satu ni lah. Antaranya adalah pertama, interview, informal interview, formal interview, non-directive interview, deep interview, and also stress interview. So for the informal interview, an informal interview is an oral interview and may take place anywhere. The employee or the manager of the personal manager may ask a few almost inconsequential questions like name, place of birth, name of relative, and others, either in the respective office or anywhere outside the plan of company. It did not plan and nobody prepares for it. This is used widely when the labour market is tight and when you need workers badly. So, temu ramah tidak rasmi adalah salah satu wawancara lisan dan boleh berlangsung di mana-mana sahaja. Tambahan pula, ianya tidak dirancang. Alright, pekerja atau pengurus personal boleh menanyakan beberapa orang kata soalan lah yang hampir tidak penting seperti nama, tempat lahir, nama saudara mara dan lain-lain, sama ada di pejabat masing-masing ataupun di mana saja. This is used widely when the labour market is tight and when you need most worker badly, di mana company tersebut memerlukan sangat-sangat pekerja. Okay, next is a formal interview. A formal interview may be held in the employment office by the employment office in a more formal atmosphere with the help well-structured question, and the time and place of the interview will be stipulated by the employment office, which is temu ramah formal boleh diadakan di pejabat dalam suasana yang kata lebih formal lah, dengan soalan-soalan yang tersusun dan terancang, serta waktu dan tempat interview juga telah ditentukan. Okay, next is non-directive interview. Non-directive interview or instructed interview is designed to let the interviewee speak his mindly freely. Okay, the interview has no formal or directive question, but his all intention is to the candidate. He encouraged the candidate to talk by little prodding whenever he's silenced. For example, right, Miss Nurin, please tell us about yourself after you graduate from high school. So, orang kata temu ramah ini tidak berstruktur lah, tidak berstruktur, dirancang untuk membiarkan orang yang ditemu ramah bercakap dengan bebas. Penerima tidak mempunyai pertanyaan formal ataupun sesuatu arahan, tetapi dia hanya tumpuannya hanya untuk kepada calon saja. Okay, next is deep interview. So, deep interview ianya dirancang untuk meneliti latar belakang dan pemikiran calon secara mendalam dan memperincikan perkara-perkara yang tertentu yang penting dan menarik minat calon. For example, if the candidate say that he's interested in tennis, a series of questions may be asked to test deep of understanding and interest of the candidate. This problem question must be asked with tact, and through exhaustive analysis, it is possible to get a good picture of a candidate. Okay, lastly is a stress interview, which is dirancang untuk menguji calon dan tingkah lakunya dalam keadaan tekanan. The interviewers may start with, Mr. Rahman, we do not think your qualification and experience are adequate for this position, and watch the reaction of the candidate. A good candidate will not yield. On the contrary, he may substitute why he is qualified to handle the job. This type of interview is borrowed from the military organization, and this is very useful to test behavior of individuals when they are faced with disagreeable and trying situation. Okay, step 6 is checking reference. So once the candidate interview is over, the reference he had mentioned are checked by the personnel department. His all employers may be asked some quick questions on phone about the candidate behavior with co-workers, management, and also others. Further, his or her regularity at work and his character can also be inquired about from the other reference. Right. So the person who give the reference of potential employee is also a very important source of information. The referee can provide info about a person's capabilities, experience in the previous companies, and leadership and managerial skills. The information provided by the referee is meant to keep confidential with the HR department. For example, question include, how long did you work with this person? Where were his or her responsibility? What strengths did he or she bring to the job? What skill does this person need to work on? And would you hire this person again? Step 7 is a selection decision. So after obtaining information through the preceding steps, self-selection decision, the most critical of all the steps, must be made. The other stage in the selection process have been used to narrow the number of the candidate. So the final decision has to be made. The pool of individuals who pass the test, interviewers, and the reference checks, the view of the line manager will be generally considered in the final selection, di mana pengurus HR memainkan peranan penting dalam pemilihan akhir kerana dialah yang bertanggungjawab atas prestasi pekerja baru tersebut. Okay, step 8, medical examination. Right, the medical exam is also very important in the step in selection process. Medical exams help the employers know if any of the potential candidates are physically or mentally fit to perform their duties and their jobs. A good system of medical checkup ensure that the employee standard of health are higher and there are very cases of absenteeism, accident, and employee turnover. In case there is a problem with the fitness, the candidates are given reason for rejection. Okay, so the first is this is an examination to determine an applicant physical fitness for essential job performance. Second, candidates are requested to submit their medical fitness report and authorized doctor on the panel list of company. So ketiganya adalah contohnya kita ambil contoh dalam medical examination ni, seperti contohnya anggota bomber, di mana anggota bomber mesti melakukan aktiviti yang memerlukan keadaan fizikal tertentu, seperti contohnya memanjat tangga, membawa mangsa yang cedera. So jadi individu-individu ini mesti menunjukkan bahawa mereka sesuai untuk pekerjaan tersebut. Alright, the step 9, final selection and appointment letter. This is the final step in the selection process. After the candidate has successfully passed all written tests, interview, and medical examination, the employee is sent or email an appointment letter confirming his selection to the job. Often, employees are hired on a conditional basis, where they are hired permanently after the employees are satisfied with their performance. First is individual who performed successfully in the preceding step are now considered eligible to receive the employment offer. Second, later on, the appointment letter contains all the detail of the job like working hours, salary, leave allowance, and others. So there is also a need of preparing of contract employment. The basic information that should be included in the written contract of employment will vary according to the level of the job, but the following checklist set up of the typical headings such as first, job title, second, duties including a process such as the employees will perform such duty and will be responsible to such a person as the company may from time to time direct, and third, date when continuous employment starts and the basis for calculating service. 4, rate of pay, allowance, overtime and shift rates, method of payments. 5, hours of work including lunch break and overtime and shift arrangement. 6, holiday arrangement. 7, paid holiday per year. 8, public holidays. Okay, the next is selection technique by ownership pattern and company size. The research results do not provide statistically significant support for the study that selection techniques list in shown will vary significantly with ownership pattern. Unlike ownership pattern, company size has significant effect on some of the selection technique that the responding firm use. As is shown, both medium-sized and large firms appear to use aptitude tests, psychometric tests, and skill or knowledge tests more frequently than the small firms for managerial or professional selection. Large firms also use panel interview, assessment center, and medical examination more often to select the potential applicant at all levels than the small firm. So this first is commonly used by small firm called small companies, such as application form, skill or knowledge test, and one-to-one interview. So this is a selection techniques commonly used by a small companies. Okay, seperti contohnya adalah syarikat-syarikat franchise, KFC, McDonald, di mana orang yang nak pergi orang kata apa, nak interview kerja tersebut hanya memerlukan seorang saja, iaitu manager. Alright, the second is commonly used by medium-sized company, which is application form, aptitude test, psychometric test, skill or knowledge test, one-to-one interview, and also panel interview. So this selection techniques commonly used by medium-sized company. Seperti contohnya, kalau orang tersebut nak apply kerja menjadi seorang admin di dalam human resource department dekat USAS ataupun di mana-mana saja, so dia orang memerlukan psychometric test, skill or knowledge test, dan juga perlukan panel interview, di mana untuk memastikan bahawa kandidat tersebut betul-betul layak untuk kerja di department tersebut. Next is commonly used by large company, which is such as application form, aptitude test, psychometric test, skill or knowledge test, one-to-one interview, panel interview, assessment center, and also medical examination. Seperti contohnya syarikat-syarikat besar ataupun department-department yang memerlukan sesuatu perkara yang ada medical examination, ada panel interview, ada assessment center. Kita boleh ambil contoh sebagai nak menjadi orang kata apa, nak jadi pengarah ataupun timbalan pengarah di dalam sesuatu syarikat yang besar, seperti contoh Petronas, ataupun nak menjadi seorang pekerja-pekerja atasan di bahagian bidang bomba ataupun polis. So benda tersebut kena ada, mana perlu ada medical examination, kena ada panel interview, kena ada assessment center. So, in conclusion, to ownership pattern, company size also has significant effect upon some of the recruitment methods and selection techniques used. It could be anticipated that as the company expands or grows bigger, the more variety of recruitment methods and selection techniques that the company is likely to use. Di mana sumbangan utama kajian ini adalah bahawa penemuan sumbangan utama kajian ini adalah bahawa penemuan di atas memungkinkan pengembangan model kaedah rekrutmen dan teknik selection yang bersesuaian dapat dikenali pasti berdasarkan corak pemilikan dan komponen size tersebut. Alright, the next is selection, recruitment and job analysis relationship. Alright, job analysis is the process of collecting job-related information. Such information helps in the preparation of job description and job specification. Selection is the process of differentiating between applicants in order to identify and hire those with a greater likelihood of success in the job. Alright, recruitment and selection are two crucial steps in the HR process and are often used interchangeably. There is, however, a fine distinction between the two steps. While recruitment refers to the process of identifying and encouraging prospective employees to apply for jobs, then the selection is concerned with picking the right candidates from a pool of applicants. Di mana, from the above discussion, kita dapat mengenal pasti hubungan antara pengambilan dan pemilihan, yakni pengambilan merupakan prasyarat kepada pemilihan pekerja di dalam organisasi. Okay. The relationship between job analysis and the recruitment of selection, that the job analysis is the foundation of recruitment and selection for selecting a qualified and capable employees as required for performing the job accurately. Alright, the next slide is literature review. Okay, based on Torrington and Hall, 1998, selection and appointment process, usually personnel and line management, use a variety of imperfect methods to add the task of predicting which applicant will be most suitable in meeting the requirement of the job. They are able to draw on the expertise to recommend the most effective selection methods for each particular job or group of jobs. And based on Barber, 1998, to be a high-performance organization, HRM must be able to assist their organization to place the right person in the right job. The HRM practices include recruitment, selection, placement, evaluation, training and development, composition and benefit, and retention of the employees of an organization. Next is Sparrow and Heltrop, 1995. The most important step in the recruiting and selection process is the decision of the employer has to make. Companies must take in consideration who fits the best in the company, has the best skill, and will be the greatest addition to the company. Alright, next slide is a case study. So, based on this case study, so as we know that Ali was feeling pleased with himself as he had been called to attend an interview for the vacant post of market research officer in Syarikat Jumaju Sdn Berhad. Alright, he had put on his new white shirt and colorful tie, which he had bought especially for the interview. So according to the company letter, his interview was to start 10 a.m. But when he arrived at 9:45 p.m., he found there were 10 other candidates waiting to be interviewed. The receptionist told him to take a seat and apologize for the delay. His interview was now scheduled for 12 noon. Right. So at 12:15 p.m., he was called into the interview room where he found himself faced by 3 stern-looking interviews. Right. The man in the middle said, "Are you Ali Ahmad?" So Ali confirmed this information. There was some confusion while the other 2 interviews looked through some papers, exchanged files and whispered together. Alright. Ali stood patiently. Eventually, the man on the right side said, "Don't you want to sit down? We can interview you while you are standing, you know." Ali immediately sat on the seat facing the interview panel and said, "I would like to thank you for calling me for this interview. I would like to be pleased to explain why I think I can contribute to your organization as a marketing officer." Upon which one of the interviewers said, "Young man, just answer our question please. Why are you wearing such a colorful tie? Don't you think it's important to dress conservatively in the office?" Before Ali had a chance to respond, the interviewer seated in the middle asked, "What do you think of our company product?" The third interviewer did not look at all for Ali. He was busy reading text messages on his phone. Right. Ali heard saying this was not what he had expected at all. He began to regret having applied to this company for a job. Alright, so based on this case study, which is if you open the book, Human Resource Management Oxford 4th edition by Maimunah Midudin, page 104. Right, so you can see this case study, and based on case question, the first is identify the mistake made by the interviewers in the case. Second, what might Ali decide to do next? And third, how might the interview process be improved? Alright, so for the answer for the question 1, which is first is leave candidates waiting. Alright, so candidates are likely to come to an interview on time because they want to make a good first impression. If interviewer leave them waiting for some time, it can give the impression don't regard the interview is important, then affect their performance. Based on case study, he had put on his new white shirt and colorful tie, which he had bought especially for the interview. According to the company letter, his interview was to start at 10 a.m. But when he arrived 9:45 p.m., he found there was 10 other candidates waiting to be interviewed. The receptionist told him to take a seat and apologize for the delay. His interview was now scheduled for 12 noon, but he was called into the interview room at 12:15 p.m. So the second is interviewers unprepared. If interviewer haven't even spent a few minutes finding out what's on candidate resume before the interview, interviewer risks asking irrelevant question, leaving the candidate less than impressed. So let's take a look based on the case study. The man in the middle said, "Are you Ali Ahmad?" Ali confirmed this information. There was some confusion while the other 2 interviewers looked through some papers, exchanged files and whispered together. Third is ask inappropriate question. It's offensive to ask a candidate certain question such as "How old are you?" Asking a candidate for his or her religious affiliation, political persuasion or lifestyle preference may even be illegal. The conversation should be focused on the role and the ability of the candidate to fill it. So based on case study, one of the interviewers said, "Young man, just answer our question please. Why are you wearing such a colorful tie? Don't you think it's important to dress conservatively in the office?" And 4, give the impression couldn't care less. If interviewer give the impression couldn't care less, don't be surprised when candidate turn down any job offer. Interviewers are representative of company, and a bad experience with interview reflect badly on the company they represent. Based on case study, the third interviewer did not look at Ali at all. He was busy reading text messages on his phone. Ali heard saying that was not what he expected at all. He began to regret having applied to this company for a job. And 5, fail to listen. In interview situation, interviewer should ask open-minded question, listen to the answer, ask a follow-up question, listen to the answer, and repeat the process. Candidates have probably spent a lot of time preparing for an interview, and they deserve to be heard. When interviewers listen to what is said, the hiring decisions are likely to improve. So let's take a look based on the case study. Before Ali had a chance to respond, the interviewer seated in the middle asked, "What do you think of our company products?" Okay. The answer for the question 2 is Ali heard saying this was not what he had expected at all. He began to regret having applied to this company for a job. And the last question is, and for the answer for the last question, is create structure for the interview. If there is more than one interview, all questions should be consistent and target the same job requirement. Identify the job requirement and create standard interview question based on this requirement. Provide applicant with information about company. Alright, applicant leave an interview with their own impression and judgment. While making a choice about them, they are making a choice about the job and company. Interviewers need to provide information, yet only a limited amount can be absorbed. It is helpful to supplement the interview with written or online information, and more importantly, to provide for follow-up question to be answered. And establish minimum standard for non-verbal cues. Body language, posture, mannerism, and appearance impact to decision. Judgment is influenced by what we see. Non-verbal cues cause to perceive people more positively or negatively depending on interpretation. To avoid biases and personal judgment, establish clear standards for non-verbal cues which are reasonable for business culture. So, the conclusion is, the objective of the selection process are to select the candidate whose success probability in the job is the highest and motivate right candidate to opt for the vacancy by a proper presentation of the organization to the potential candidates. In many HR departments, recruiting and selection are combined and called employment function. In large human resource department, the employment function is the responsibility of the HR director. In smaller departments, HR managers handle these duties. The selection process relies on 3 helpful inputs. Job analysis information provide the description of the job, the human specification, and the performance standard each job requires. Human resource plan to tell HR manager what job openings are likely to occur. This plan allows selection to proceed in a logical manner. So, the selection process is a series of steps through which applicant pass. Sebagai contohnya, calon yang gagal memenuhi syarat untuk langkah tertentu tidak akan layak untuk muncul ke langkah yang seterusnya. So, hasil setiap langkah sangat penting. Kegagalan dari segi apa pun sekalipun, secara tidak langsung akan menunjukkanlah kelayakan calon daripada mencuba ke proses yang seterusnya. Because of this characteristic, Aiedil 1972 has termed this process as a succession of hurdles. Ianya dirancang untuk menentukan calon yang paling mungkin berjaya dan memenuhi syarat pekerjaan dengan menghilangkan calon yang mungkin berjaya. So this is my reference for my slide. Right. Kalau ada salah dan silap, harap diampun. Kalau ada penambahbaikan, semua orang kata kelemahan yang datang semua daripada saya, dan kelebihan datang ataupun kebaikan semua datang daripada pihak tuan sendiri. Jadi itu saja penerangan daripada saya berkenaan dengan selecting proses. Semoga dapat memberi manfaat kepada anda semua. Itu saja, sekian daripada saya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.